Hey, everybody. Welcome to another deep dive with us. I know you've been looking into ways to build a strong financial future
Yes.
and one that, doesn't involve all the ups and downs of the stock market.
Right.
You've got some really interesting stuff here about indexed universal life insurance,
Okay.
or IU for short.
Yeah.
And we're going to unpack this together and see if maybe IULs would be a good fit for you.
Awesome.
So it sounds like you're really looking for a way to steadily grow your money, but also make sure your loved ones are protected.
Yes.
And IULs have this really kind of cool potential to do both.
Right.
So let's bring in our expert to help us break this all down.
Hey, great to be here.
So IULs,
Yeah.
I mean, how would you explain these
Sure.
to somebody who's never even heard of them before?
So in the simplest terms, they're not your typical life insurance policy.
Okay.
Think about them as like two parts working together.
Okay.
You got the life insurance part that we all know about, provides that safety net if something happens to you.
Right.
But then it's also got this cash value account built in.
Oh.
So it's almost like a savings account that's linked to a stock market index, like the S&P 500.
Okay, so it's like a life insurance policy with a bonus savings plan kind of attached.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about the index linking part.
Sure.
I mean, the stock market, that can be so up and down.
Yeah.
How does that really work?
That's where the index part comes in.
Okay.
So with an IUL, your cash value isn't directly invested in the market.
Gotcha.
It's linked to the performance of that index. But there's a safety net.
Okay.
Let's say the S&P 500 has a bad year and drops 10%. With an IUL, you're protected from those losses, usually with a floor often set at 0%, so your cash value won't decrease.
So it can't go down.
Right.
But then I guess there's probably also a limit on how high it can go, too.
Yeah, exactly. So there's also a cap on how much your cash value can grow in a year.
Okay, so it's like a buffer against the market's lows,
Yeah,
but also a limit on the highs.
exactly.
Okay, I see how that could be appealing to somebody who wants to, be safe, but also still wants their money to grow.
Exactly.
So in the source material, it mentions these participation rates.
Yes.
Can you explain what those are?
Sure. So those are key to understanding how your cash value might grow.
Okay.
It's basically a percentage that decides how much of the index's gains get added to your account.
Okay.
So for example, if the S&P 500 goes up 10% and your participation rate is 80%, then your cash value would increase by 8%.
Oh, okay.
So these rates can vary between different IUL policies.
Gotcha.
They can even change over time, so it's really important to understand what you're signing up for.
So it's not a guaranteed reflection of the market gains.
Right.
It's a little more nuanced than that.
Exactly.
And, anything involving money, there are usually fees involved.
Right.
What about IULs?
Yeah, you are right. Fees are something to think about.
Okay.
IULs tend to have higher fees compared to some other types of life insurance. These fees cover things like managing the policy, including that index linking feature and the death benefit.
Right.
You're paying for that security and potential growth
Okay.
the IUL offers.
Okay.
But those fees, they can impact your overall return. So it's super important to understand how those fees are structured and to compare different policies.
All right. So we've got these basics down, life insurance with this cash value account linked to an index.
Right.
We got potential for growth, but some protection from losses.
Exactly.
We got those participation rates
Yes.
that figure out how much of the market's gains you actually get. And we've got fees that can be all over the place.
Right.
One thing that stood out in your notes was you mentioned tax advantages.
Oh, yeah.
Could you break that down for us?
Sure, absolutely. So this is where things get really interesting,
Okay.
especially if you're looking to grow your money more efficiently.
Okay.
So with an IUL, the cash value that you build up grows tax deferred.
Okay.
And let me give you an example. So let's say you have $10,000 invested in a regular savings account, earning 5% interest. You'd owe taxes on that $500 in interest every year.
Right.
But with an IUL, you wouldn't pay taxes on those gains while the money's still in the policy. Those taxes are deferred until you take the money out.
Okay.
So that lets your savings potentially grow faster.
So it's like giving your money some room to grow
Exactly.
without that tax bite right away.
Right.
Okay. And I think you even mentioned something about tax-free loans.
Yes. So that's another really great thing about IULs.
Okay.
You can actually access that cash value you've been building through loans.
Okay.
And the best part is those loans are generally tax-free.
Wow.
That means you could maybe use that money for a down payment on a house, starting a business, maybe even your kid's education.
Wow.
And you won't have to pay taxes on that borrowed amount.
Tax-free loans to tap into your savings.
Exactly.
That opens up a lot of possibilities.
It does.
It really does sound like IULs have this really cool combination of benefits, especially, for somebody like you who's looking for secure growth and those tax advantages.
Yeah.
But we got to be thorough here.
Of course.
Are there any downsides or things to watch out for?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's important to look at both sides.
Okay.
We already talked about fees, and those can be a big thing to consider.
Yeah.
And IULs, they're not as simple as a savings account.
Okay.
They've got a lot of moving parts, and it can be a little tricky to understand all that.
Okay.
That's why it's really important to work with a good financial advisor who knows their stuff.
Okay, so don't go this alone.
Yeah.
Get some expert help.
Definitely.
Okay, so we've gotten these basics down.
Right.
We've explored how these IULs work, the potential benefits, some of the things to keep in mind. Where do we go from here?
Well, now that we've got this foundation, let's see how IULs could actually fit into your financial picture.
Okay.
We can explore how to use them for specific goals, like paying for your kids' education or boosting your retirement income.
Sounds like a plan. Welcome back. So now that we've got a pretty good handle on the ins and outs of IULs,
Yeah.
I kind of want to switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
And talk about how they could actually work for you, like in real life.
Right.
You mentioned that you're looking for secure ways to build wealth for the future. And I think that's really where that dual purpose thing with IULs really comes in.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not just about stacking up the money. It's also about making sure your family's taken care of.
Right.
If something were to happen to you, IULs offer that peace of mind.
Okay.
Knowing that your loved ones will be okay financially.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you're building wealth that could benefit you and, future generations.
Yeah, it's more than just numbers on a page.
Right.
It's about protecting the people you love.
Exactly.
And also, working towards your goals. One thing that stood out to me in your notes was you were talking about early retirement. I know that's a dream for a lot of people.
Right.
Do you see IULs playing a role in that kind of a plan?
I do, definitely. Remember how we talked about the cash value growing tax-deferred and how you can access it through those tax-free loans?
Right.
Well, that could be a game changer for someone who wants to retire early.
Okay.
Think about it being able to use that cash value to add to your income in those first years of retirement.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about a big tax bill.
Well,
It's give you so much more flexibility and freedom to really enjoy retirement.
Yeah, that's a huge advantage.
It is.
It's like having a secret weapon in your retirement plan.
Exactly.
But early retirement's not the only goal you mentioned.
Right.
You also talked about saving for your kids' education.
Yes.
Could IULs work for that too?
They could, definitely. It's like building this pool of money that grows without being taxed right away.
Okay.
And you can use it when you need it. Okay.
So whether it's for a down payment on a house,
Right.
starting a business, or paying for your kids' college,
Yeah.
that cash value can be super helpful.
Okay.
And remember, those loans are usually tax-free,
Right.
which could make a big difference in how much money you actually have.
I'm seeing how versatile these IULs can be.
Yeah, they can be used for a lot of things.
It's not just about that death benefit.
Right.
It's about having options, creating a financial safety net that you can use throughout your life.
Exactly.
But I want to be realistic here.
Of course.
Are there any times when IULs might not be the best choice?
That's a great question, and it shows why it's so important to really know your financial goals.
Okay.
And how much risk you're comfortable with before you jump into an IUL. For example, if you're mainly looking for quick gains,
Right.
or you're okay with taking on more risk,
Okay.
there might be other investments that would suit you better.
Gotcha.
IULs are really for the long haul.
For steady growth over time.
It's about picking the right tool for the job.
Exactly.
So we've talked about the potential benefits, the tax advantages, the flexibility, and even some possible downsides.
Right.
But I'm curious, from what you've seen, what are some of the biggest misunderstandings people have about IULs?
One of the biggest ones is that they're too complicated.
Okay.
And while they definitely have their quirks, I think a lot of that confusion comes from not having enough good information.
Okay.
That's why it's super important to have a knowledgeable financial advisor.
So someone who really knows what they're talking about
Exactly.
can help make things clearer.
Right.
Another thing I've heard is that IULs are only for rich people.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
That's not true at all.
Okay.
Well, the payments for an IUL can be more than term life insurance.
Right.
They're often more affordable than people realize.
Okay.
And the potential benefits, especially the tax advantages and the long-term growth, can make them a good option for a lot of different people.
So it's not so much about how much money you make.
Right.
It's more about your goals.
Exactly.
And having that long-term vision. I'm glad we cleared that up.
Yeah.
As we've been talking, I've been thinking about, your desire to build a legacy for your family.
Yes.
How do you see IULs fitting into that bigger picture?
I see them as like a foundation for building wealth that can last for generations.
Okay.
It's not just about passing money down.
Right.
It's about creating that financial security that can help your kids and even their kids.
Yeah.
It's about setting them up for success.
Okay.
And giving them the resources to go after their dreams.
That's a really powerful way to look at it.
It is?
It's not just money.
No.
It's about opportunities.
Right.
For the people you care about.
Exactly.
But do you have any final thoughts for our listener before we wrap things up?
Just remember, the more you know about IULs, the better decisions you can make.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Right.
Do your research.
Yeah.
And get expert advice.
Ask questions. Do your research and get expert advice.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's great advice for any money decision, really.
It is.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dives into indexed universal life insurance.
It does.
I hope you found this as helpful and interesting as I have.
That too.
And to our listener, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you.
We encourage you to keep learning about IULs and see if they might be the right fit for your financial future.
Absolutely.
Remember, your future self will thank you for taking the time to invest in your financial well-being.
That's right.
Until next time, keep diving.